Breaking tonight on ABC News Live Prime, Iran launches a deadly new wave of attacks across the Middle East. Two massive explosions reported in Saudi Arabia, the regime warning the Saudis, Qatar, and the UAE to evacuate energy facilities. All this after Israel hit an Iranian oil field, one of the largest in the world, causing oil prices to spike once again. Plus, the fight for information on the ground in Iran, how the Iranian people are getting their news during a countrywide internet blackout. 24 hours after a top intelligence official resigned in protest, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard grilled about the war in Iran, pressed if Iran posed an imminent threat. Heated moments during the Senate confirmation hearing for Mark Wayne Mullen, President Trump's pick to be the next Homeland Security Secretary.
Let me earn your respect. Let me earn the job.
I'm Gio Benitez at Newark Liberty International Airport. A shortage in TSA officers is crippling some major airports, 2,700 of them calling out, and now some smaller airports are at risk of closing entirely.
New details about disturbing allegations of sexual abuse emerging against the late civil rights icon Cesar Chavez. Two women reportedly claim they were assaulted as children. Now the Chavez family is responding. The emotional goodbye to the site of one of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history. The major payday for the WNBA thanks to a brand new contract. And it's the final chapter in a cultural phenomenon. Tonight, our sit down with Cillian Murphy and Rebecca Ferguson to talk about the exciting feature film addition to the world of Peaky Blinders.
I loved playing that character. Amazingly high standard of writing. An absolute gift to play a character for that long in your career. Rare that happens, you know, very, very rare.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, I'm Perry Russ. I'm in for Lindsay Davis. Thank you for streaming with us. We begin with a major escalation in the war with Iran. Israel attacking a natural gas field, the largest in the world and a pillar of Iran's energy supplies. Iran retaliating, unleashing a wave of attacks across the Middle East. UAE air defenses intercepting Iranian missiles and drones launched toward Dubai. Saudi Arabia also said it intercepted attempted attacks on its energy facilities. And Qatar said Iran attacked its liquefied natural gas terminal, the largest in the world. Meanwhile, the Strait of Hormuz effectively blocked. The U.S. dropped multiple 5,000-pound bunker-busting bombs along the coast. All this as oil prices surging to nearly $100 a barrel, and gas prices here at home are up nearly $1 from a month ago. Chief International Correspondent James Longman is in the region and leads us off.
Shockwaves and uncertainty over oil and gas prices only worsening tonight. Flames shooting into the air as Israel bombs the world's largest gas field in Iran and the backbone of the country's energy sector. Video circulating online shows the flames and smoke engulfing the refinery. Israel's move comes just hours after the U.S. dropped multiple 5,000-pound bunker buster bombs on Iranian missile sites along the coastline in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. says they targeted cruise missiles that Iran could use on oil tankers and ships passing through that critical waterway. Tonight, Iran retaliating to Israel's attack on its gas fields with a furious missile barrage across the region. This huge explosion in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, seen in video posted on social media. In the skies over Dubai tonight, air defenses knocking down incoming Iranian drones and missiles. Iran also striking the world's largest liquefied natural gas terminal in Qatar. Extensive damage reported. The Qataris condemning the attack, calling it a dangerous escalation. Iran tonight with this dire new warning, saying if you attack our oil and gas facilities, we'll do the same. Iran now urging Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the UAE to evacuate their energy facilities immediately, the lifeblood of this region and engine of the global economy. Experts say the list of Iran's targets account for more than 1.25 million barrels per day of oil and natural gas production. Tonight's attack sending global oil prices surging above $109 per barrel. Gas prices in the US spiking 94 cents since the start of the war, now averaging $3.88 a gallon. Late today, Vice President Vance called the surging gas prices a, quote, temporary blip.
We're working on a number of things. In fact, a couple of things that I think will be announced in just the next 24 to 48 hours. I don't want to get ahead of the president on that, but we recognize this is an issue.
And tonight, Iran also unleashing this cluster missile attack on Israel. Multiple explosives raining down on Tel Aviv, a couple in their 70s killed. This as the Israeli military ramps up attacks on Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. This entire apartment building in Beirut razed to the ground. residents given just an hour's notice to get out. Meanwhile, back in Iran, defiance on the streets of Tehran tonight. Thousands mourning the national security chief, Ali Larijani, the regime's de facto leader, assassinated in an Israeli airstrike. Tonight, Israel says they've now killed Iran's head of intelligence, too.
James joins us now from northern Iraq. And James, what can you tell us about Israel's strategy to go after Iranian leadership?
Well, Perry, it feels like every day the Israelis are trying to go after senior members of the Islamic regime. Today, they killed the head of Iranian intelligence, Ismail Khatib. Now, that is a major win for Israel, someone that they presumably have been tracking for many, many years. The Israelis have deeply penetrated every part of Iran's regime, it seems. Their intelligence gathering has been extraordinary to be able to take these people out. What they're trying to do is to create the space, they say, for Iranians to come down into the streets to protest against the regime and perhaps even to trigger regime change. The likelihood of that, though, very, very hard to say, given how many people make up the security services of the Iranian regime and the likely violence that they would be met with should they try. Perry?
James Longman, thank you. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard faced questions today from lawmakers about the war in Iran. Her appearance on Capitol Hill came a day after the Trump administration's top counterterrorism official resigned over his opposition to the war. Here's Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce.
Tonight, the White House releasing these photos. President Trump traveling to Dover Air Force Base to witness the dignified transfer of the remains of 6 American service members killed in this war. The trip coming 24 hours after one of his top intelligence officials resigned in protest. Director of the National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, declaring Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. But Trump insists it did, claiming Iran was trying to rebuild its nuclear program after the U.S. obliterated it last year. But today on Capitol Hill, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard refusing to echo the president's words.
Was it the intelligence community's assessment that nevertheless, despite this obliteration, there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime? Yes or no?
It is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
Okay.
That is up to the president
here's the problem.
Based on a volume of information
it is precisely,
that he receives.
It is precisely your responsibility to determine what constitutes a threat to the United States. You are here to represent the IC's assessment of threats. That's a quote from your own opening statement.
Despite what Trump has said, Gabbard told Congress that Iran had actually made no efforts to rebuild its nuclear capability.
In the opening statement you submitted to the committee last night also stated, quote, there has been no effort since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And that's the assessment of the intelligence community.
Yes.
Mary joins us now from the White House. And Mary, what did Gabbard have to say about the state of Iran's leadership?
Well, Perry, President Trump has said all of Iran's leaders are dead. But today, Tulsi Gabbard told Congress, quote, the regime in Iran appears to be intact, but largely degraded. Perry.
Mary Bruce, thank you. The Federal Reserve today held its first meeting on interest rates since the start of the war, and questions linger over oil prices and other economic fallout from the conflict. Elizabeth Schulze has more on the Fed's decision today. Elizabeth.
Hey, Perry, the Federal Reserve left interest rates unchanged here today. This is the second meeting in a row where they didn't make a change to those borrowing costs. A lot of uncertainty in the economy over what's happening in the Middle East. That was the message from Fed Chair Jerome Powell, really trying to say they are still understanding and looking at what the impacts from that oil price shock will be on the overall economy and on consumers. The big question is, how much does that filter into higher inflation? Does that change the Federal Reserve's paths and outlook when it comes to lowering interest rates? I did ask the Fed Chair, Perry, about how these higher prices that we're seeing at the pump, gas prices now up almost a full $1 on average since the war began. Here's what he said.
We don't know how big these effects are going to be, and I don't want to characterize them in any way. Of course, people are already seeing gas prices. Gas prices are up almost $1 a gallon. We hope that isn't for a long period of time, and of course people will feel that.
Fed Chair Powell's term is set to end in May. He did say that he would effectively stay on as the Fed Chair until the nominee to replace him, Kevin Warsh, is confirmed. He said he has no intention of leaving the Fed board until that investigation into him, that threat of an investigation from the Justice Department, is well and truly over, he said. Perry.
Elizabeth Schulze, thank you. Heated moments during the Senate confirmation hearing for Senator Markwayne Mullin. Today, President Trump's pick to replace Kristi Noem to run Homeland Security. Here's Jay O'Brien.
Tonight, the surprisingly personal confrontation on Capitol Hill. Republican Senator Rand Paul accusing President Trump's nominee for Homeland Security Secretary, his Senate colleague Markwayne Mullin, of having serious anger issues. Paul bringing up his own assault by a neighbor in 2017.
You told the media that I was a freaking snake and that you completely understood why I had been assaulted. I was shocked that you would justify and celebrate this violent assault that caused me so much pain and my family so much pain. I just wonder if someone who applauds violence against their political opponents is the right person to lead an agency that has struggled to accept limits to the proper use of force.
Paul then playing a video of the time Mullin, a former MMA fighter, tried to fight a union leader in the middle of a Senate hearing.
Let's go ahead and roll the tape.
If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
Oh, stop it.
Is that your
All right.
solution every
Hold it. No, sit down. Sit down. Look at you. You know, you're a United States Senator.
Mullin responding that union leader was with him today, supporting him.
Both of us have had conversations. Both of us have shaken hands. And both of us agreed we could have done things different.
Mullin also asked about the violence surrounding the administration's immigration crackdown in Minneapolis. Federal officers killing two protesters, Renee Good and Alex Preddy.
You, sir, you called Alex Preddy, quote, a deranged individual that came in to cause max damage. Could we expect those kinds of quick responses if you are confirmed as secretary?
No, Senator. Those words probably should have been retracted. I shouldn't have said that, and as secretary, I wouldn't. Sometimes I'm going to make a mistake, and I'll own it. That one, I went out there too fast. I was responding immediately without the facts. That's my fault. That won't happen.
Jay joins us now from Capitol Hill. Jay, Mullin seemed open to perhaps curbing his past combativeness. Do you say how that would affect his leadership at DHS?
He's promising a change of tone at DHS, Perry. And in particular, he said that his order to ICE officers, Border Patrol, et cetera, would be to get judicial warrants signed by judges before they go into businesses or homes and conduct immigration enforcement. That would be a change for the current enforcement tactics of DHS. Senator Rand Paul, though, still saying that he is a no on Mullin. He told that to me after the hearing. But Mullin is likely to get the support of at least one Democrat, Pennsylvania's John Fetterman. That key committee vote is tomorrow, Perry.
Jay O'Brien, thanks. For more, we are now joined by Democratic Senator Gary Peters from Michigan. He is also the ranking member of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Senator, thank you for your time tonight. So you spent the day at the fiery confirmation hearing for President Trump's pick to be the next DHS secretary. That would be Senator Markwayne Mullin, the Republican from Oklahoma. Is he the right man for the job?
I do not believe he is. I will not be supporting his nomination. And I think, that was certainly confirmed in the hearing today. I went into it with an open mind, but I thought about what is really necessary for the next DHS secretary, particularly after the disastrous run by the previous one, is that we have to, bring down the rhetoric and restore trust with the American people. DHS has a trust issue right now with the actions that we've seen on the streets of Minneapolis, with the attack on civilians, U.S. citizens, that we need to have a DHS secretary who understands that they need to abide by the rules and by the law, and certainly they can engage in their actions, but they have to be conscious of the guardrails necessary to protect the public. And if you listen to Senator Mullin, he has a quick temper. He's demonstrated that quick temper before, including in former Senate hearings where he wanted to take on one of the witnesses and wanted to wrestle him or fight him right there. He was actually admonished by our U.S. Senate Ethics Committee that said that was unacceptable behavior. And they also said that when he was given an opportunity to walk back from political violence, he wouldn't do that.
At the hearing, you pressed Mullin, who has no history of military service, over past comments he's made suggesting that he might have served overseas in some capacity. What was his response?
Yeah, it's really confusing. His story about that, he's been quoted in many sources, has appeared on podcasts and other kinds of media, kind of implying that he was involved in some sort of military type operations. He admits he was never in the U.S. military, but still talks about being involved in those kinds of operations. And he can never explain it. I mean, he goes from that was classified to I really wasn't doing anything that needed to be classified. The story is very confusing. It changes constantly, and it just raises a lot of questions.
Switching gears, DHS is still not funded. Americans are feeling the impacts at airports across the country as TSA agents are working without a paycheck and lines at the airport are just growing. How close are we to a deal?
Well, we're still a ways away when it comes on putting in guardrails for ICE. So that's basically what we'd like to see is basically the federal agents operating on the streets of the United States have to use the same rules that our local police use each and every day. But I will tell you, every Democrat, and they included, know that we need to fund TSA, we need to fund FEMA, the Coast Guard, and we have to do that now. And we've actually put legislation forward to say, let's do it. But unfortunately, and this is through, to get in the process is unanimous consent, but unfortunately, Republicans have blocked that. In fact, they've objected to bills that would actually fund TSA. We could do that today. We could fund TSA today with the bills that we have. We've offered it several times. They've objected. We could fund Coast Guard. We could do CISA, our cybersecurity agency, FEMA, and yet the Republicans want to use those agencies basically as a hostage so that they don't have to put in safeguards for federal agents and not have to make them abide by the same rules that our local police abide by, and that's unacceptable. And it's important to remember that both ICE and CBP, where we want to change those rules, they are fully funded. They were fully funded in the bill that passed last summer. They have all the resources, but we can do it for every other component of DHS. Every Democrat supports it. Republicans have been blocking that effort time and time again.
And then before you go, you are retiring at the end of your term this year. The Democratic primary to fill your seat is highly contested. Who are you endorsing?
I'm staying out of the primary. We have three great candidates. It is a very close race, and I'm confident whoever wins the Democratic primary will be the next United States Senator from Michigan.
Senator Peters, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We're learning more information about what caused the closing of a gate near the Visitor Center at MacDill Air Force Base in Florida on Monday. ABC's Pierre Thomas joins us now. So, Pierre, what have you learned?
Well, Pierre, the FBI is analyzing what looks like an improvised explosive device which was left outside the Visitor Center at MacDill Air Force Base in Florida on Monday. The discovery shut down a gate at the huge base, tying up traffic for hours. While there are questions about whether the device could actually detonate, today the FBI released a statement saying the investigation is ongoing, and the FBI says a field screening identified possible, quote, energetic material. Perry, the final lab work is not yet done, but the incident is being treated seriously. Last night, the threat level was raised at the base, which is playing a key role in the U.S. military campaign against Iran. Perry?
Pierre Thomas, thank you. Airports across the country are facing a shortage of TSA agents who are not getting paid during this partial government shutdown. 10% of all agents, about 2,700 people, called out across the country yesterday. So the staffing issues have led to long wait times for passengers, with some major airports deciding to even close checkpoints. Here's Gio Benitez.
Tonight marks day 33 of the partial government shutdown affecting the TSA, and with no end in sight, thousands of TSA workers who are going without their paychecks aren't showing up for work, and the lines are getting longer. The TSA telling ABC News nearly 2,700 TSA workers called out Tuesday, and roughly a third of all agents at multiple major airports from JFK to Atlanta to Houston, where our Christiane Cordero landed today.
Here at Houston Intercontinental, nearly 30% of TSA workers called out yesterday. Today, we are seeing lines that at times span hours.
Marty Morales and Karen Batris telling her they missed their flight to El Salvador because of the line.
It was 3 hours and 45 minutes. Our luggage is there, but we're not.
Officials at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, one of the busiest in the world, telling ABC News producer Janice McDonald they had to close one of their 4 security checkpoints again today.
I saw the estimated wait time go from 72 minutes to 90 minutes to 115 minutes within a 15-minute span of time. Earlier I spoke to 3 TSA agents, 2 of which started crying and one of whom asked for a hug.
Most airports are not seeing significant issues, but TSA officials are now warning that if a deal isn't reached to fund the government soon, some small airports could be forced to close entirely.
Over 100 airports in the United States have around 1 or 2 lanes. And so if we have a certain amount of callouts increase, we might have to quite literally collapse those lanes and close those lanes, which could halt operations at that airport.
Gio joins us now from Newark Airport. And Gio, where is the best place for travelers to look for accurate wait times on security lines?
So, Perry, this is a big question and an important one, and I want you to go directly to the airport website. I don't want you to go to the TSA app, and that's because the TSA app is not being updated right now. So check the airport website. Also, check the airport social media, because sometimes they have additional information there that they're pushing out a little bit more real time than what they can get on the website at times. So check the social media as well. But no matter what, get to the airport early, because even those can be inaccurate. Perry.
Great advice, Gio. Thanks. For more on the effect this partial government shutdown is having on air travel, let's bring in Cillian Cordero. She is at George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston. So, Cillian, many TSA workers around the country have been calling out rather than showing up to work without pay. What impacts are you seeing there in Houston?
So we're waiting on today's numbers, Perry, but yesterday here at IAH, about 30% of TSA workers called out. Just down the road from us, the other major airport here in the Houston area, Houston Hobby, they're seeing numbers closer to 40, 50% over the past few days. So when you talk about the potential for smaller airports to shut down, you can see the greater ripple effect, right? Because these bigger hubs like IAH, where we are right now, would take on a little bit more of that impact. And quite frankly, Perry, it doesn't seem like they can handle much more.
And then what are travelers saying about the delays?
You heard earlier in Gio's piece, we spoke with a couple today. They said that they got here 3 hours early thinking that would be enough time. It took them 3 hours and 45 minutes to get through the security checkpoint. TSA pre-check doesn't matter if you have it or not in these conditions, because they were all merged into one lane. They missed their flight to El Salvador and were scrambling to find a new flight when I met them. Perry.
Cillian Cordero in Houston. Cillian, thank you. Shocking allegations against famed civil rights leader Cesar Chavez. The New York Times investigation alleges the labor icon sexually abused minors and young women over several years. Now, a labor activist who worked closely with Chavez is speaking out about her alleged sexual assault. John Quinones has the story.
For decades, the late Cesar Chavez has been a civil rights icon, a champion of farm workers and hero to millions of Latinos.
We're not going to give up. We're too far to give up.
But tonight, that legacy shattered after an explosive investigation by the New York Times detailing allegations Chavez groomed and sexually abused girls who worked in the farm workers movement. Ana Murguia telling the New York Times she was 13 years old when Cesar Chavez started to sexually abuse her. Deborah Rojas telling the Times she was raped by Chavez when she was 15. And in a shocking accusation, Dolores Huerta, who co-founded the United Farm Workers Union with Cesar Chavez, is breaking her silence after 60 years, saying she was pressured into having sex with Chavez in her 20s and was later raped by him, saying, "I was forced against my will." She says 2 children were born from those assaults and were adopted. Chavez has been honored with murals, schools, and streets named after him, and annual Cesar Chavez Day celebrations. But tonight, the United Farm Workers say they will not participate in this month's celebrations, saying the allegations that very young women or girls may have been victimized are crushing. And at Fresno State in California tonight, this stark image, the statue of Cesar Chavez, now covered in black.
John joins us now, and John, the Chavez family is responding to all of this. What are they saying?
You know, Perry, both the union and the Chavez family are expressing shock and concern for the victims. And you know, Dolores Huerta, she's 95 years old, and she says she only recently learned about these other women, the other victims. And she says she's speaking out now because the thought and the knowledge that Chavez would hurt young girls sickens her. Perry?
John Quinones, thank you. Almost a decade after the tragic mass shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, the city is now demolishing the building. Orlando is preparing for a permanent memorial at the site. where 49 people were killed in 2016. Crews are dismantling the structures as well as adjacent buildings on the property. All signs and other artifacts from the property will be held in a climate-controlled warehouse until officials determine their future use. The WNBA and the Players Union have reached a major breakthrough in a battle over player pay. A verbal agreement has been reached on the terms for a new collective bargaining agreement, but the deal is not yet finalized. The deal includes a new salary cap starting at $7 million, up from $1.5 million. The average salary will also increase to roughly $600,000, up from $120,000. Coming up, as the war with Iran rages on, our James Longman has an in-depth look at how Iranians are getting their news outside the state-run media. Plus, a Beagle Farm break-in lands dozens of people in jail, including a former Baywatch star. And a happy update for Punch the Monkey, who might just have a +1. In times of war, experts say information can be weaponized. For the people of Iran, information is limited and heavily censored, leaving many dependent on government-operated news sources. In tonight's Prime Focus, star James Longman shows us how Iranians are getting their news and how one option may be used to provide critical strategic knowledge.
What would it take for regime change in Iran? Airstrikes alone won't bring down the Islamic Republic.
When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
People power, that's what's needed. But with danger in the air from ongoing strikes and the streets controlled by regime loyalists, how and when would protests take place? What is the plan? Well, what Iranians see on television may hold the key.
You may think because of the internet blackout that Iranians are just sitting at home in the dark, unable to know what's going on around them. That is not true. There are a number of TV stations that are able to broadcast via satellite. You don't need an internet connection for that, and just about everybody has a satellite dish.
The regime does its best to jam signals, but millions of Iranians are watching what the regime considers dissident television. BBC Persian, Voice of America and Monoto are major news sources. Since its founding in 2017, Iran International TV has become arguably the insurgent voice, taking a much more active role in broadcasting the views of Iranian opposition outside the country. And Reza Pahlavi, the son of the late Shah, seems to have their full support. Pahlavi has courted Israeli backing in recent years and has a significant following among Iranian Americans. Every time he sends a public message, Iran International broadcasts it.
We know that our popular programs are watched by millions, sometimes tens of millions of people in Iran. The Iranian government is not happy with our operation.
This is Bozorgmeher Sharafaddin, the head of digital at the channel. I put it to him that his channel has enormous power to trigger demonstrations.
So they're waiting for a signal, and the signal could come via Reza Pahlavi, via Benjamin Netanyahu, via Donald Trump, most likely on Iran International.
The last round of protests that happened in January, which was the biggest protest in the history of the Islamic Republic, came from a call from Prince Reza Pahlavi. Yeah. And that brought millions of people to the streets in Tehran and millions in other cities. So, yeah, that message was broadcast from Iran International.
But when they tried, thousands died. According to a US-based human rights network, at least 6,800 people are known to have been killed in January's protests. That agency is looking into another 11,000 related deaths. There were widespread reports of mutilation, disfigurement, rape and sexual assault. Has Pahlavi's voice been compromised? Will Iranians listen to him again? Despite the obvious risk, Israel seems to be pushing for revolt. And in the last few days, the IDF has shifted from striking major military infrastructure to more local instruments of regime repression. Video circulating online shows some Basij checkpoints, the feared religious militia responsible for the January crackdown, being hit. And on Tuesday, the head of the Basij, Gholam Reza Soleimani, was killed in an Israeli strike. An Israeli security official tells us they are actively working to undermine the regime's internal stability and adds the idea is to give Iranians confidence that they can go to the streets. has set up Farsi language accounts on social media, criticizing the regime and expressing support for the Iranian people. But the security official tells us Mossad is going further still, sending messages to Telegram and cell phones that read, "You are our eyes and ears. Give us the intelligence." And they are. The official tells us Iranians have been giving Israelis specific addresses to aim their drones. When Israel believes it's created the conditions for revolt, the signal for Iranians to put their lives on the line for regime change may come. The danger, they may trigger a bloodbath. The Washington Post reports Israeli officials have privately briefed US diplomats that protesters will get slaughtered. Benny Sabti is an Iran expert at Tel Aviv University.
What does Israel want to get out of all of this? Because, we speak to people in the region and they will say, Israel doesn't want democracy in Iran. They just want chaos. Because as far as Israel is concerned, as long as it has hegemony in this region, then it's won.
It's so not true. It's so not true. And if we remember the 60s or the 70s, when Iran and Israel had a good relationship, also the Arab countries had good relationships with Iran. Even American presidents, Nixon and maybe others, called Iran the gendarme, the police of the region. When Iran is stable, this region is stable.
The relationship between Iran International TV and Israel is the subject of intense speculation.
And can I ask, is there a formal relationship between Israel and Iran International TV?
The information is very public. We are funded by private investors. One of them is from Saudi Arabia. And there are rumors that we are funded by Israel, but that's not correct yet.
But is a perceived proximity to Israel good for Pahlavi if Israel continues to destroy so much Iranian infrastructure?
I'm not sure President Trump's objectives for the war aligns with what Israelis want, because Israelis want to escalate and to remove the Islamic Republic at any cost, even if there is a civil war in Iran.
Omid Memarian is senior Iran analyst at Democracy for the Arab World, a think tank focused on U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East.
And people at this moment might feel like they have lost their agency, that they have no say in what is happening and what's going to happen next. And it's entirely the U.S. and Israel that are writing the book for them. And I think that's very frustrating for so many people.
Memarian thinks the longer this goes on, the easier it will be for the regime to paint this war as one against the Iranian state rather than the regime, and play on nationalist sentiment. And calls from Pahlavi on Iran International may lose their potency.
There was a perception in Iran that there would be a war. The war would be short, with not much destruction. 3 weeks into the war, we have not seen major cracks within the regime. They are not going to drop their guns and leave the country or basically join the next government, transitional government. They are going to fight street by street.
Memarian envisages a darker reality for Iran as this war continues.
There is a core group that supports the regime, and to being a martyr for them is a dream. It's not something that they escape from. So they fight to the last bullet. They will fight, and they see this as a matter of honor.
The US pulled out of last year's 12-day war against Israel's wishes. Some analysts think the Israeli strategy this time might be to get Iranians out onto the streets to force a longer US intervention. But with the oil crisis deepening and frustration growing in DC and around Europe, this war is widening by the day, and it's having an impact on the US economy.
So the big question is, if degrading the regime enough to allow protests to come out into the street takes time, how much time is Donald Trump prepared to give it?
James Longman, thank you. Coming up, a police pursuit by paddleboard, how officers in Florida pulled it off, and a major milestone for vinyl sales in the U.S. We look at the big year in the recorded music industry by the numbers. You're watching Prime. Here's a look at the stories making headlines right now. Iran is attacking key energy sites in neighboring countries in the Gulf. The source tells ABC News that facilities have already been evacuated in Qatar after Iran issued evacuation orders for energy assets there, as well as in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Iran says it's retaliating for Israel's attack on its largest gas field. The TSA is now warning that some small airports may need to shut down due to staffing shortages because of the partial government shutdown. This comes as TSA officers continue to work without pay over the busy spring break travel season. New data from TSA shows nearly 10% of all officers called out sick yesterday. That's according to DHS. More than 300 officers quit since the start of the shutdown. The late civil rights icon Cesar Chavez is now accused of sexually abusing girls and young women for years. The labor activist who co-founded the United Farm Workers with Chavez, Dolores Huerta, is breaking her silence, telling ABC News she was, quote, manipulated and pressured into having sex with Chavez. The union is calling the new claims disturbing, adding it had no firsthand knowledge of the abuse allegations, but is taking urgent steps to learn more. Actor Val Kilmer, who died last year, will appear in a new film thanks to AI. Kilmer was cast as actor in As Deep as the Grave back in 2020, but was battling throat cancer and was too sick to appear. The movie's producers, with permission of the late actor's family, were able to artificially engineer his performance. They used images of Kilmer throughout the years. Coming up, vinyl sales hit a record last year. We're going to take a look at the milestone by the numbers. And Tommy Shelby is back by order of the Peaky Blinders. Cillian Murphy and Rebecca Ferguson sit down with Prime anchor Lindsay Davis to talk about the new film, The Immortal Man. Vinyl records are having a resurgence. That was one major finding from the Recording Industry Association of America and its annual year-end report. The group says 2025 overall was a big year for music revenue in the U.S., so let's look at their findings by the numbers. The report says vinyl surpassed $1 billion in sales in the U.S. for the year. That is a 9.3% increase in revenue from the previous year and marks 19 consecutive years of growth for that format. It was also the year's best-selling physical format with 3 times the revenue of the next highest, CDs. Remember those? Those were fun. So whose records are people buying on vinyl? Taylor Swift. Shocker. Her album, The Life of a Showgirl, sold 1.6 million units last year on vinyl alone in the U.S., the most of any album. That is according to Luminate. But even with vinyl's resurgence, the report found that streaming, yes, streaming, is still the big moneymaker, and boy, is it ever. It accounts for 82% of all music revenue in the U.S. And the RIAA also said that paid streaming subscriptions also grew with $6.4 billion in revenue for the year. All told, the year-end total revenue for recorded music in 2025, a record $11.5 billion. All right, coming up, the heartwarming donations for nurses at a Pennsylvania hospital from an anonymous patient. And Peaky Blinders is back. Our Lindsay Davis sits down with stars Cillian Murphy and Rebecca Ferguson to discuss the new film, Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. A police pursuit by paddleboard, $1 million surprise for nurses at one hospital, and Punch the Monkey finds love. These stories and more in tonight's Rundown. Authorities outside Daytona Beach, Florida took an unusual approach by jumping on paddleboards to catch a suspect trying to get away. Officials say the man jumped into the Halifax River, but a police officer and deputy followed close behind on the water. Video shows them reaching the suspect, placing him in handcuffs, and guiding him back to shore on a paddleboard. The suspect now faces charges of loitering, prowling, and resisting arrest. A heartwarming surprise for nurses outside Philadelphia. At Bryn Mawr Hospital, an anonymous patient donated $1 million to help nurses pay off their student loan debt. The donation was divided among 173 nurses, with each one receiving about $3,600. The donation was inspired by similar donations across the mainline hospital system in Pennsylvania, setting off what can only be described as a chain reaction of kindness. Grammy Award-nominated rapper Afro Man is on trial after being accused of using footage of a police raid in a music video without permission. Back in 2022, deputies in Adams County, Ohio, raided the rapper's home on suspicion of drug trafficking and kidnapping, but no charges were filed. Afro Man later used the home security footage in a viral music video. Now several deputies are suing, claiming the video caused humiliation and death threats.
All of this is their fault. If they hadn't have wrongly raided my house, there would be no lawsuit. They wouldn't be on my home surveillance system. And there would be no songs.
Afro Man argues he was simply exercising his First Amendment rights. Dozens of animal rights activists stormed a dog breeding facility in Wisconsin and released more than 20 beagles. Video shows the moment the activists broke through a fence around the perimeter of Ridgeland Farms, entered the facility, and walked out with the dogs that were reportedly bred for biomedical research. Police arrested more than 20 people in connection with the break-in, including former Baywatch actress Alexandra Paul. The first trailer for the highly anticipated Spider-Man Brand New Day is here. The trailer offers a glimpse into what's next for Peter Parker following the events of Spider-Man No Way Home. Familiar faces will return to the latest installment of the franchise, such as Zendaya and Jacob Batalon. Spider-Man Brand New Day swings into theaters on July 31st. The internet's favorite monkey may have found love. Punch the monkey, who went viral after being abandoned by his mother and bonding with a stuffed toy, is now stealing hearts once again. New video shows Punch cuddling and playing with a female, with his beloved plush companion still close by. It's a sign that the once lonely monkey is thriving and maybe even has a girlfriend. I'm just saying, if Punch can find love, so can you. I believe in you. Peaky Blinders was a massive hit and a cultural phenomenon when it first premiered back in 2013. 13 years later, Tommy Shelby is back on screen in the new Netflix movie, The Immortal Man. Prime anchor Lindsay Davis sat down with Cillian Murphy and Rebecca Ferguson to talk about their roles in the beloved gangster drama.
Cillian, let's start with you. After 6 seasons on Netflix, now that the movie's here, how does it feel to return to a character after several years?
It feels great. I mean, I loved playing that character. Amazingly high standard of writing. An absolute gift to play a character for that long in your career. It's rare that happens, you know. But we had kind of been like dreaming up the movie for a long time. We shot 6 and then we were thinking about doing season 7, but then COVID came along. So we pivoted to the movie. And then it was several years of just discussions, you know, and I'd been producing since like series 3 or something. So it was just a rolling conversation about, can we do a movie?
Rebecca, you were already a fan of Peaky Blinders when you were approached then for the movie. So what was it like to become part of the franchise?
In one way, I feel that I have become a part of a family and a story, but I don't feel like I'm a part of a franchise. I think that's what Stephen has done so well, creating this incredible film in its own. But like Cillian said the other day, people have seen the show. They've seen 36 hours of backstory. Yeah. But for us, we have to come in, create something new that is a big enough hinder or something for these characters to meet. And that's challenging and fun and exciting.
The director described your character as a harbinger to Tommy Shelby. How would you describe the dynamic between the two?
There is an urgency and there is a direction with which she maneuvers through things. But I think what I felt between us is Tommy wanting her there and Tommy wanting nothing more than for her to disappear. Yeah. And I think this is the game that we had to find between us. It was a power play. Who has the upper hand? And it was sort of a moment in a scene where you said, it's nearly like Tommy saying, I know you have the upper hand, but I'm letting you have the upper hand. Yeah. And by that, the power shift turned. So it's a complex dance between us.
Your son is in trouble. He's working with evil men. Men who would destroy our people, gypsy people.
I do not engage in that kind of work anymore.
When the movie begins, we're in Birmingham during World War II, and Tommy Shelby, as much as he seems to really try to stay away from war, at the same time, it seems like he revels in the crime a bit.
This story is bookended by these 2 wars, right? By the Great War, or the First World War, and then the Second World War. And in that interim, you know, I think Tommy's values are tested and challenged. He was formed by the events of the First World War and what he saw and what he witnessed and the death and the destruction. But over the course of that time span, I think he has to look at himself and go, what do I actually stand for? What are my actual beliefs? What are my actual values, ideologically, politically? And then Beckett, who Tim Roth plays, is kind of like, you know, they come from the same background. They're both working class men, but Tim Roth has a completely different ideology than Tommy has. So I think very slowly over the course of the show, but very kind of quickly in the 2 hours of the film, we begin to realize what he actually stands for.
I think that there's also an interesting aspect in that the role that the women play is very significant for the overall movie, but in Tommy's world as well.
Oh, completely. I mean, Steve has always been very keen that there is no distinction. They're just great characters, you know.
I've said, I'm a victim to it, to say someone writes really good women, and you kind of have to decipher what does that mean. It's human beings. Women can be powerful, but what is a synonym to being a good woman? Is it just that we're powerful? No, it's the fact that there's an intellect, there's plan, there's agenda, there's vulnerability. You just play a character that serves the purpose for that story.
The music was one of the first things that I noticed because it almost serves as a narrator, and at the same time, it's very modern music, juxtaposed against this time period nearly 100 years ago.
Well, it was there from the beginning, and our first director, Otto Bathurst, that was his call to put Nick Cave specifically at the beginning of the show when Tommy rides into town, you know, on the back of the black horse, and
did he just nail it straight away?
it was like everything trial and error, and then it just kind of, it just worked. And then Nick became the kind of musical talisman for the show, I think. And then, like Radiohead, you know, Leonard Cohen, David Bowie, PJ Harvey, you know, Laura Marling, the Fontaines DC. It's just, they all volunteered to give us their music and original music.
Oh, wow.
So
David Bowie reached out to you, didn't he? Or maybe
So
I
they were
shouldn't.
fans of the show and said, hey, let me create a song for this?
Yeah, or sometimes here, please use this music from this particular album. There was a combination of needle drops and original music. As a music obsessive, it was like, it's been one of the delights of my career. The fact not only that they're in the show, but they watched it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All right, our thanks to Lindsay Davis. The Immortal Man is playing in select theaters. You can stream it on Netflix this Friday. That's our show for this hour. I'm Perry Russum. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks for streaming with us.